Hi, so welcome to our first episode of this research information session. So today we have Simon with us, and my name is Linda. I'm one of your SARC interns. So Simon, if you could just please introduce yourself, just your name, major, year. Yeah.
Sure. So hi, my name is Simon. As you mentioned, I am currently a third year as a math and econ double major. So I'm also in the School of Physical Sciences, but I do econ with social sciences, which I actually really enjoy too. Is there anything else you want to know about me, or?
Yeah, that was just a basics. So just going off that, what are you researching, and how did you get involved with your research in the
Sure.
first
So
place?
I actually was a math major at first, and I still kept with math, but I really started getting an econ because I started just reading online articles and whatnot, right? And then I added econ later, and the more I got into econ, the more interested I was in econ. So I started reading papers online for econ, and eventually I started liking econ more than math, so that's a good thing. So I was reading an article, and it turns out the article was written actually by a professor at UCI, Damon Clark, and I thought, wow, this article is super interesting, and it's on economics of education. A lot of people think economics is kind of like the study of money or interest rate or the economy, whatnot, but there's many aspects of the economy, right? And economics being the study of the distribution and the production of goods that are limited in the economy. So there's a lot of goods in the economy, and one of them is education, right? So what this person was doing, David Clark, was that he was studying economics of education, which is how you can produce and distribute education better in the economy, right? So as I was reading his article, I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I actually just sent him an email out of the blue, cold email saying hey, your stuff is really interesting, and I would love just sit down and talk with you about it. And since he wrote the article and I read it, he's very excited. He's like, wow, someone read my paper, so he invited me into his office, and we had a really good conversation about what he does with his research. And I asked him, I'm actually thinking about graduate school in economics. And he's like, wow, it's really interesting. Participating in research is one of those characteristics that grad school committees really like to see on undergrad applicants, right? And I was like, yeah, I read about that, but I'm not sure how I can get involved. And he actually just took me in at his research assistant for my spring quarter. So we did an Econ 199 course where I had helped him with, data analyzing and just helping him around with his research. So I think the way I got into research was just, very, very lucky. I was just really interested in the subject matter. And it just turns out the article I was reading, the author was from UCI, and I was really interested. So I sent him an email, and he just responded, and he was a really kind person. A lot of professors are like that. And then, yeah, he took me in for a quarter, and then that's how I slowly got into research.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's a really long journey you got there. So yeah, going off of that, a lot of students, they're wanting to get involved in research. They're questioning okay, I'm majoring in this, this, and this. But how did you specifically find out what you wanted to research and find your core research topic? What's your advice for students who are struggling to find that?
Okay, I don't know how long I should answer these questions for. It's I don't know how long you want these answers for. Oh, okay. I don't know if I'm answering too long or too short. But,
no,
okay.
You're good.
How I found my interest is I guess it goes to mentality that you should research something you're interested in, right? You should let your interest move your research rather than letting your research motivate your interest. So when I was younger, I always wanted to be a teacher, actually, and that's originally why I entered math, right? And that's no longer the case, but I really like the idea of learning and education, so that, as the, when I was younger, I always had that interest of learning and education. So very naturally, I would, want to become a teacher. But I think research really helps into that because I started doing research in education, economics of education, just as a research assistant for that professor, right? And it comes from my interest. Now, for those of, for anyone that thinks there's so many things you can research, and they wouldn't know what to research, and that's totally okay. I was there at a point too. What I would suggest to them is just follow their own passions in their own subject. You know, I'm sure they're majoring in something that they hopefully like, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that major has many different like aspects. You know, you think of economics. Once again, a lot of people think it's just like about money and interest rate, but there's a lot of things to economics. You know, you think of like health economics, which studies, you know, how we can effectively produce and distribute a drug. You know, or we think of behavior economics or labor economics or economics of education. You know, there's so many fields within your major, and I'm sure there's one of them that will really interest you. So first, I would start off with your major. Look at you know, the different specializations in the fields in your majors. And something I would suggest actually is just go to your major's faculty site and just look up each of your professor's CV, right? Because each professor is at UCI for a specific reason, right? And they have their own research interests. And, you know, just read one of their papers. It'll be difficult. I remember the first paper I read, I had no idea what was going on. But if you really persevere in that sense and read, you know, at least part of the paper, it'll give you a sense of what kind of research that professor is doing. And you can see, you know, is this something that, though difficult, is something that I would be interested in.
So going like off the topic of like contacting faculty and like looking them up on like our faculty pages, like how do you think students should approach professors, whether it's like should they like take a class with them like specifically, or should they just like contact them? So like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it really does depend on like how interpersonal you are, and of course like it's there's a lot of skills you need to like I wouldn't say like help out a professor, but I think one of the most important skills is just being like a genuine, like personable, like impressionable person. You know, so the way I started actually is I just sent him a cold email. I did not know the guy at all. I never took class with him. Personally, I never even heard his name at UCI until I found his article. I later took a class with him though. Great guy. But I think the best way to start out is just to reach out to professors you already know, right? You know, a lot of students, they want to get into research, but they don't know how to approach a professor, right? And I think start off by just taking a class with a professor that seems interesting, right? And it's always better to know them, you know, face to face or personally, rather than sending out a cold email, right? Because there's this personal connection you have with them. Even though, you know, you're just a student and they're a teacher, but at least, you know, they might know your face. They know that if you did well in the course, they'll be like, wow, this person did really well in my course. Maybe he can help me around with my research, right? So I would say that's the best route to take, just being in a class with them and then doing well in their class so that you can impress them. But, you know, let's say there's a professor whose research interest also aligns with yours and you're really interested in what they are doing. It wouldn't be bad just to send them an email and say, hey, like the stuff you do is pretty cool. You know, like I think it's cool for A, B, and C reasons. And I was wondering how I can, you know, get involved in the work you kind of do. You know, do you think we can meet up? I read, you know, your article on X and I also read your article on Y. And I was really interested in, you know, why you use this method or how you became interested in this method. Do you think we can talk about that article? So if you send a professor a cold email, you really have to demonstrate not only your interest in the field, but also your ability to read the articles they put out so that you can not only your interest, but also your academic competence in order to understand the material, right? So if you do reach out to a professor you don't know, just be really interested, like be really passionate about that subject. And, you know, like I said before, you should really let your interest drive your passion for research so that when you meet them, you know, like this is something they put their lives into, their work into, you know, like as a professor, their research is their life, you know? So if you're talking about their works, you're going to be, you know, touching on something that's really close to their heart. So to sound interested will make them also interested, right? And by doing so, they might be interested in taking you on as a student researcher as well.
Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, so following up that, so at Stark, we have like a lot of students who want to get involved in research, and some of them are like transfers and like they're a little scared about like timeline. So I just wanted to ask you, like, what was your timeline about getting involved with your research, and like how long did it take for your professor to reach out back to you? How long did like your research actually prolong for? Like things like that.
Yeah, so the earlier is the better, and actually you don't have to take any concrete steps, but you know you can think about it during the day. So I think that's to me, that's how I started. I just started thinking about problems, like, how can we optimize this process, or how can we improve this area in the field, And I would walk around Aldrich Park. I would just think about those questions, right? So start just by thinking about what kind of areas you want to do research in, right? Because it's scary that really motivates you. But in terms of practical steps, it's always good to start early and just start reaching out as soon as you can. I think I was a research assistant my second year spring quarter.
Okay.
I took a 199 course with a professor, and then afterwards, I applied to the UCLA Labor Center, which studies labor economics, and it really studies workers' rights and whatnot. So I was a student researcher there for the summer, which I learned a lot of good skills from the two professors there, Saba Wahid and Yana Shara Fernandez, two amazing people in studying labor. And then most recently, I applied to a NSF, the National Science Foundation's RU, Research Experience for Undergrads, at George Mason University. And this is the type of program that's, it's from the NSF, so it's I don't mean to brag, sorry. It's just, of course it's from the NSF. So unfortunately, it had to be canceled, which I'm really bummed out by because I'm a third.
No.
This is the last summer before my grad school applications. But I think something to consider is that there's still a lot of research opportunities, whether those opportunities are canceled or not. So once I was canceled, I was like really bummed out for quite a while. But I actually applied to Europe, the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program at UCI. So to a summer kind of thesis to make up for my NSFRU. So if I were to say like that timeline, you can kind of tell how I started very small in the sense of, I was just thinking about questions first, and then I hit a professor who had the same interest as me. And I was their research assistant for a while, and then I slowly gradually moved up from 199 course to an internship at the Labor Center, and then to an RU, and now to the to Europe. So it's you can start, the sooner the better, but don't be afraid to start small by just doing little things for professors, because slowly you'll build up the skills you need in order to do bigger things.
Okay, wow, thank you for that. So yeah, I know like you mentioned you were like involved in Europe. So are there like any resources that you thought were like beneficial that when someone's like starting their research, and like possibly like why, if there are those resources?
Yeah, I think okay, so obviously the SSARC is a really good resource. They provide a lot of like graduate school resources, such as like studying for GRE, or how to get involved in research, and also like how to connect with faculty. I think every once in a while you guys have like a seminar, or like a coffee day with professors or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've been to one of them, but I usually come on Fridays for bagels and coffee. Unfortunately, not during this time. But I think the SSARC is a really good resource because they're kind of, we have like we have a lot of offices to help connect students with employers, but the SSARC is kind of like the office to connect students with professors. So that's one resource I would look into. Europe is also another resource that's good. But I think the best resource you have is just your community and your connections you have around you, right? A lot of people don't think too much about the professors when they take courses with them, but come to office hours. Even though it's online, they'll remember you if you go to office hours online for sure. And even like during this time, like this would be one of the best times, just go to office hours and talk with them online.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because by having that small community, or that small connection with the professors, you've already somehow started the groundwork to do research with them in the future.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so diving into like a question that's more focused on like what you did as a researcher, like how time consuming was your research compared to like your schoolwork and other like potential commitments?
Dang, dude, I'm not gonna lie, research is hard. So it really depends. Like if you take a 199 course, it's kind of up to the professor. So when I first did it, obviously like the first time is always the hardest, but it took a lot of my time. Using a program called ArcGIS, which is a geographic information system. it does like data analysis with like maps, and you make maps basically.
Yeah.
But it's cooler than it sounds. So that took me a while because I had to learn the program itself, and then I had to execute what my professor wanted, you know. But then when you take a 199 course, you choose the units. So it can be anything from 1 unit to 5 units. So I put it as 5 units.
Oh.
Something you have to talk to your professor with. When I was at the labor center, it took up all of my summer. Oh wow, when I was there, we did many tasks. I think one of them is we went out to collect data. We would ask workers in Los Angeles. We would ask them to fill out surveys. We had to input the surveys, and then we had to analyze the data in R, right? Or people use Python as well. R is very good. But yeah, it usually takes up a lot of your time, and it takes up a lot of your time not only because it's like it's a lot of work, but when you really get into something, you want to put a lot of time into it, right? It's like your interest is driving your passion, right? So it's a lot of work, but if you're really interested in it, it doesn't really become work. It just becomes, in a sense, a hobby, right? So even though it does take up a lot of your time, if you're really interested in something, you won't see it as work, but you'll see it as a hobby and something enjoyable.
Okay, wow. Yeah, so I think one of like the last questions we had, or like towards the end, is like what is like a lesson or like one piece of advice that you give to yourself or like your past self when you're looking into starting to research?
So like I think a lesson I would do is that you kind of like, a lot of people ask like what kind of skills you need to get into research, right? And like the obvious answer is like, oh, like learn some kind of code or some kind of hard skill. But I think there are 2 types of skills you need. The first is like a hard skill, and first are soft skills, right? And a lot of people talk about the hard skills, but the soft skills are just important. A hard skill would be something like coding. Like learn R. A lot of professors use R, or Python is also really good. SPSS is another one. Excel is a really popular one. eViews or Stata, right? And it's really important to know a coding language and a hard skill, just because you'll be doing a lot of data analysis oftentimes for that professor, right? Especially within the School of Social Sciences. I don't know if you know, Carl Pearson is the father of modern statistics, one of my heroes actually, and he says statistics is the grammar of science, right? So we kind of need some kind of programming language to do the statistics work and data analysis, so that we can communicate our science, our knowledge in a way that's effective and understandable, right? So having some kind of coding language is also, but I think even more important, or just as important rather, is having some kind of like soft skill of personal connection. No one wants to work with someone that's like really boring or like really like arrogant, or like just be a human. Like be yourself, is what I say. Be interested in the work, and that kind of and that's the kind of soft skills you need. Just I'm mixing up my words here. A soft skill would be like be interested in their work, and also be a very impressionable person, and just be yourself. And by doing so, you'll show them that you'll not only have a hard skill which you can actually use to help a professor with research, but you'll also be a person that's easy to work with and that's very impressionable.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much, Simon. So yeah, that really concludes like our brief little session here. So it's gonna be a part of a 3-part series with 2 other like panelists. So we hope all of the listeners right now can tune into our next IGTVs. So yeah, thank you so much, Simon. And I hope you guys
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I hope you guys can tune into our next episodes. Thank you.